This podcast does not provide medical advice. The information included but not limited to any videos, texts, graphics, image materials, or any programs or consultations contained within this podcast are for information purposes only. The podcast does not constitute providing medical advice or professional services. It does not constitute a patient-physician relationship. If you have medical concerns, please seek out your private physician, or if you feel you have a medical emergency, please contact 911. Welcome to Kars Koaching, the podcast where we combine our love for cars, medicine, and self-development to get you to the life that you deserve. Hey guys, Dr. K, another episode of Kars Koaching where we go ahead and take our love of cars, our love of medicine, as well as self-development and bring them all together. Today we are with the bronze medalist of the men's gymnastic team, and there it is, Paul Juda, who's an incredible athlete and young man, and we're going to go ahead and talk about a lot of different things. Paul, welcome.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Yeah, been a fan for a couple of years now, and just always love seeing your messages online. They always kind of bring me back. They're always a video that I stop and watch while I'm endlessly doom scrolling right in the middle of the night. So always reminds me about what's important. And like you said, I've had a really, really awesome career up until this point. I've been able to have a lot of really great moments that I've been able to reflect on and think about why I've been able to succeed versus different moments. So honored to be here, honored to talk about just self-development and, like you said, love for medicine, but also, you know, love for anything. I think passion today is kind of like a fleeting trait that people seem to be really quickly attracted to. So excited to just talk about passion for anything. So yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, no, and I think we were talking. It's all about passion, and it's all about mindset, right?
Yeah.
And I think there may be an end goal that has something to do with everybody's definition of success. But if you set a goal out and you have that passion, people only see the end result, right?
That's
so
right.
They see Paul standing there with the medal with the rest of the team and say, man, what a lucky guy. Nah, it has nothing to do with luck. They don't see all of the things that occurred before. I'm sure you did not start gymnastics last year.
That's right. That's right.
And read a quick, Gymnastics for Dummies book and gave it a shot, and here you are. So it obviously, there's a lot of dedication, and I think that the mindset is needed in order to be able to continue that, because I'm sure there's a lot of ups and downs. One of the things I always say about personal development, life, and success, people make mistakes all the time, but one of the things I equate it kind of to a stock chart, right? You're going to go up, you're going to go down. You're going to build a base, you're going to go back up, you're going to go down. As long as your trajectory is going in the right direction, you're in good shape. If your trajectory is tilted downward, you're kind of in trouble. But
yeah, no, 100%. I always like to put this analogy to having a goal of becoming worth $1 billion. It's just always been something that is quickly really easy to explain. And I always tell people, if your goal is to become a billionaire, it's wonderful. It's great. And if you look back at the end of your, 100 years of life and you're on your deathbed and you're sitting there worth $850 million, you're not going to look at that and be upset about the $150 million that you lost out on. I think about my 2024 goal sheet right here. I'm looking at it. It's right next to my desk. And I think about how right next to 2024 Olympian, it says team medal, all-around finalist, and event final medal. And so I've got 3 out of 4 check marks there, which one could look at that objectively and say, well, you didn't accomplish all of your goals. But I'm not going to sit here and say that I'm not beyond happy with what I've accomplished, just like that person on their deathbed wouldn't be beyond happy with what they've accomplished up to increasing their net worth. So I think, like you said, it's about having that general big picture goal that you're obviously striving towards and hopefully moving towards in every action every day that you have, but also to realize it might be about that significant point in time or that significant goal, but a specific goal. But at the end of the day, when you look back on the journey, that's what's really important. And it's, I think so many people are able to kind of sit back and say, well, it's so easy for you to say that with the Olympic medal hanging around your neck. And of course I'll say, yeah, I've got the resume now that I can say that kind of thing. But truthfully, when I was sitting there 10 minutes before being selected for the Olympic team, I was at bliss. I was at peace. I knew that had I not made the team, I was content with the journey that I had been on up until that point. So yeah, really about the journey for me.
Yeah, no, that's interesting, and I don't know if Ed Milet. I don't know if you know who Ed Milet is, but Ed Milet's another podcaster, self-developer, very big in the Tony Robbins frame. But
Sure.
and I don't know if he coined this term. It definitely was not my term, but there's a term that he uses that I really like, which is blissful dissatisfaction. And what
Yeah.
he says is that you have to be happy with where you're at, but still have enough dissatisfaction to continue to drive forward. And I think if you look at everything like that, that's fantastic. It's just like, it's not the end goal, just like you said. It actually is the journey that's taking you there. If somebody wants to lose 100 pounds, you used a billion or I used 100 pounds, and
Yeah.
they say they're going to do it by, April 15th. And they go ahead and on April 15th, they lost 98 pounds and they're upset. Well, you missed the whole
You
thing,
missed
right?
the whole
Yeah,
point. Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
You didn't attain your goal. Granted, I get it, but you should be excited and you should be blissful for where you actually got to. And I think
Man,
that. Go ahead. Go ahead.
sorry. I just this point. I have a psychology background. I got my BA in psychology here at Michigan, and I love that you brought up the weight example because all of my background in psychology from my undergraduate classes is coming up to me right now, and it
Right.
was this one very specific experiment, and not necessarily even. Active experiment, but it was one that they researched a lot about. And the topic was how most patients that undergo extreme weight loss surgery end up regaining that weight. And it's an extremely difficult battle for those patients to keep that weight off. And I had always equated it to almost like winning the lottery in the same way, in the sense that how often do you hear about the stories of the 100 millionaire jackpot that blows it in 2 years?
Right. Right.
And the reason that I think those two are so similar is that you didn't cultivate that identity throughout the process. If you're losing 250, 150, 300 pounds of fat, that becomes who you are. You now, when you go to dinner, you say no to the dessert. You say no to et cetera, et cetera. You change your habits. You become that person. Similarly, if you build up your net worth and your monetary status or whatnot in your business, you end up becoming that person along the way. It didn't just happen like that, and that's why I think, like you just said, it's the long game. Why does that patient that does the 350-pound journey on their own or through the traditional method, why is that able to stay off at the end? Well, it's not because that person is no longer overweight. That person is healthy, period. You know what I mean? And there's a difference.
It's no, I agree 100%. It is the identity. And one of the persons, I don't know if you ever read Atomic Habits,
Yeah, of
but
course.
James Clear, what does he talk about? He talks about the identity. It's the same thing if somebody is a smoker and they're trying to quit and somebody says, hey, do you want a cigarette? They say, no, I'm trying to quit, is completely different from the ability to say, no, I'm not a
A
smoker. It's
smoker,
the identity
100%.
piece that comes through on that. And I think what tends to happen, I agree 100% with the identity of the obese people that then gain it back. But I also think there's something called the pressure cooker effect, okay? And what happens is this. If you get on a plane and you unfortunately, and again, I'm not shaming anybody for anything at all here, but if you get on the plane and you need 3 seat extensions and all of a sudden, seatbelt extensions, all of a sudden you say, that's it, I'm done, I'm going to go ahead and lose weight. What happens when you go on that journey is, say you're 350 pounds, now all of a sudden you're 300 pounds, you're 250. What happens is people start saying, man, Mike, you look good. And the
Yeah,
pressure's gone, right? And
yeah,
once the pressure is gone, right? Because what drives us? I mean, you know this from psychology,
yep.
right? It's inspiration or desperation. Well, the
That's right.
desperation was there, but now that desperation is kind of fleeting a little bit, and then we'll always fall back to our old ways. And I think
That's
that's
right.
kind of one of the keys, you know.
No, that's right. That's right. I have this, to humanize an Olympian, I think to say, I'd love to share this little tidbit about kind of what I'm going through in my life right now. I've equated myself a little bit in the last couple of months after the Olympics of being like a lion who's already had his dinner. I've accomplished a life goal of mine that I've had for 20 years, and I finally get to check off the box and sit here and reap the benefits of it. But as I'm kind of now transitioning back into quote unquote what I say regular life, where I have to go to classes, where I have to meet with my professors, now I don't have the Olympic body that I had even just 4 months ago. I have to rebuild that endurance and that physical condition.
That's all right. I'm keeping the Olympic body for you. No, I'm teasing. Sorry, Paul. I had to throw that in. Go ahead.
It's now I'm kind of having that switch to keep going is ever so harder once you've accomplished something. But I keep watching this this video by Eric Thomas, who says like, why do you feel, so satisfied just because you accomplished something? What do you now just get to turn off the gas and you get to just reap the benefits? No, it was never about the accomplishments. So the accomplishments shouldn't be the reason that you take a seat back. I know Kobe Bryant would always talk about the process, the process, the process. Mm-hmm. And so that's, I just to humanize myself, if anybody ever was wondering, yes, even after the Olympics, I'm now kind of trying to get myself back into that process mindset.
No. You're 100% correct, and I think that's one of the things equating the journey. And I could only imagine rather how much pressure and how much strain and how much training you had. But when you take something like medicine, it's a long journey.
Yeah.
And I think what happens is, and tell me if this is what you were kind of trying to message, is when you finish being a physician, a lot of times they take that as the medal.
Yeah.
And then there's no new goals, right? Because it took so long to get there. And then what happens for the next 25 years of a physician's life, not everyone's, right? It just becomes that hamster on the wheel. And there's no new goals, right? There's no new anything. And there's a lot of physicians that end up gaining weight, getting divorced 3 or 4 times, having problems, etc., because you kind of stop that goal. And I think it's important, no matter how old you are, you could always become who you want to become, and you always have to have some goals. You're going to have a bunch of disasters along the way, but you have to have some goals,
100%. I couldn't agree more. There was this moment that I had in, let's see now, April of 2021. So we were about 2.5 months away from the Olympic trials, and I was in some really bad shape. My routines were not coming along the way that I had planned. I was realizing very quickly that making the Olympic team all of a sudden was now a long shot, that I probably wasn't going to be making this team. And that takes a lot of, first of all, third person viewing, saying, wow, I'm not going to make this team. So kind of turning on that realistic switch. We always talk about SMART goals and them being reasonable, and really being able to tell myself, hey, you know what, you probably won't make this team, or at least it's going to be very difficult for you to do that. I was so proud of myself, and my mom coins it too. I called her and I said, I don't think I'm going to make this team, but I think I'm going to be all right even if I don't. And she was so proud to hear that from her son, who had just done, 15, 16 years of gymnastics straight, to now say, hey, that ultimate goal that I was going for, I won't accomplish, and I think I'm going to be okay. And I use this term, I coined this term in one of my psychology classes. I said it was my diversification of happiness. Right after I had identified that I wasn't going to accomplish that goal, I started pointing out all these other things that I loved and that loved me. I had my family. I had my long-term girlfriend. I had this new hobby in golf. I loved my psychology major. I loved my teammates at school. So I had so many other things going on for me that even though that one little bubble popped, that was all going to be okay because I had so many other things supporting me. So when I hear about those physicians, that goal is so massive, becoming a physician, that afterwards you kind of take a step back and you go, well, was I anything but the schooling? And so I encourage so many of my freshman teammates to find passion outside of their sport, because the second that you do that, gymnastics then becomes just something that you love and are able to do. It's never a have to. I get to do gymnastics because I love it, and then when I'm done, I get to go and do something else that I love.
Right. And it's part of your identity, but it's not your only identity. You know,
Exactly.
I think that's part of the key. You know, one of the interesting things, and I know a lot of the media picked up on this, and you kind of mentioned it a little bit earlier. It's your whiteboard with your goals,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And you have things written down. So kind of explain to the people listening how first you started doing that. Number two, how big of a percentage do you think that
Oh.
was to get you to where you're at?
Yeah, yeah. So speaking of kind of just everything we had just talked about, really, it's a perfect segue. After coming off of the World Championships in October of last year in 2023, we were the first team that accomplished a team medal in 9 years. Most people thought that it was a drought that was going to exist forever, and we were able to kind of stop that and bring home a medal. And I thought, again, it was another one of those accomplishments where I'm thinking, phew, I don't have to do anything else again in this sport to be satisfied. And so I had kind of been, again, I had to relearn, get into a rhythm of, okay, what's my next goal? What's more important? What's now important to me? And so I remember I went to the store, I went to Meijer just late at night one late day in December, and I thought, okay, I want to write down some 2024 goals, long-term goals, goals that kind of scare you when you write them down, but that's how you know that they're the good ones, because they give you a little bit of goosebumps. And I also vowed to myself to put it next to my desk so that every time that I would look at it, every time I would sit down at my desk, I would have to stare at my goals in the face and ask myself, am I working towards them or am I working against them? And so I think for me, it was a really big part of it, because it got to the stage where I had to cross a couple of them off because I didn't accomplish them. And I said, okay, that's fine. I still have this one. And I really well spaced them out so that they were kind of a full, we're in the 11th month now, and I've got goals that last all the way up until December. So it was really well written to have kind of building blocks for every part of the year. And yeah, it really did motivate me because I had to look at it every single day.
No, that's fantastic. And one of the things that you mentioned is the SMART goals, right? They have to be specific, measurable, time bound. One of the things that I tell some of my clients is to always look when you set those up, always take a look at what are some of the obstacles, whether
Yeah.
they're self-imposed by you or someone else, to be able to kind of fit that into the SMART goals, because then you kind of know what's going on along the way, right?
Yeah.
So in your case, something like injury or
Hmm.
something of that nature. I think once you start getting that realistic optimism, right? So, hey, there are certain things that I have to address before I could go ahead and accomplish certain
Hundred,
goals.
a
I think that,
hundred percent, 100%. And I also think I'm a huge firm believer in keeping a lot of these kinds of things private. I think it's really in our day and age with social media, it would have been not even a second thought for most people to write down that really long exercise, do that long exercise of writing down massive 2024 goals and then posting them to Instagram.
right.
And for me, I'm so glad that I never went that route, because you get a certain dopamine release when you get comments saying, I can't wait to cheer you on. Can't wait to see you accomplish these. Wow, et cetera, et cetera. You're like, yeah, I am working towards these. Meanwhile, I'm reading my phone. You're not working
Right.
towards them. And on top of that, you have no judgment from the outside world. No one needed to know what was on there except for the people that I invite into my home. And
Right.
those people that I invite into my home are worthy and willing and good enough people to support me in my goals either way. So I think that's a really important piece too to anybody that's trying to accomplish goals today, or anybody that's struggling to figure out, what's a good way to just kind of shut out the noise and work. Well, the first step to that would be to not broadcast it to too many people. Settle down, find your core group of supporters, tell them your goals, and have them hold you accountable too, and then you can move forward.
Yeah, no, and I think that's important. Obviously, you're about 5 years younger than me. No, I'm kidding. But, obviously there is, I've been through the age where, listen, I used to have a quarter or a dime in my pocket to make a phone call, right? Now
Sure,
we have a
sure.
computer on our hands. In social media, there is so much positive that it could do,
Yeah.
but there's also so much negative, right? And I think you're spot on. When you start writing goals, people on social media can be very critical. They don't understand what everyone's life is like. They pick up on all of the small things and actually destroy people, and people are only showing the positive things that are occurring. That's why I always say, oh, you're so successful. I'm not, right? Just because I have something doesn't mean nobody knows what struggles I have. Nobody knows what struggles Paul had getting to where he's going. And it's not, I don't think, if I could get people to understand this, it's not all of the things that they see that's positive. It's who you're becoming as a person that is
100%.
important, And,
Yeah.
I think a lot of people miss that on social media. But it is
I
what it is.
we
There's
ha-
a lot of benefits.
we had this awesome quote that I heard in one of our leadership development programs here at Michigan with our team, and our lead speaker had said, "We judge others on their actions and judge ourselves on our intent." And I
Right.
thought you
That's
hit it
true.
on the nail there. You hit it on the nail. We'll look at what somebody else did and say, "Yeah, finger pointer, finger pointer, finger pointer."
Right.
But it's so difficult to be a thumb pointer. Yeah.
Yeah. No, it is. Yeah. We're always, it's easier to criticize other people. Well, you have a psychology background, right? We always overestimate our capabilities, right? And
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
underestimate our downfalls. Everybody
That's
does
right.
that all the time, right? So when you start looking at, oh yeah, no, I did really good on it. Everybody thinks they did work, and you on the outside are going, you didn't do anything. What are you talking about? It's
I
funny.
I
Go
Go
ahead.
ahead,
Go
go
ahead.
ahead.
No,
Please,
no.
please.
I was going to say I had a group of four of us together started our ER group. And I remember, and I'm sure I was just as guilty. You were saying, pointing the index finger to the thumb, and they're all telling me how much work they're doing. And I feel like I'm the only guy doing the work, right? So it always comes out like that.
100. I love what you were saying there about the over and underestimating, and I think there's a adage to that, and it's we overestimate what we can do in 1 year or one
Right.
week, but we way underestimate what 5 years of compounding does, or 10. And so again, I think I look back at my journey so far, and I think, man, yeah, the days sure do take a really long time, but man, did the years fly by. I mean, I could snap my fingers and think about 2021 trials like it was yesterday. And then I think about all the injuries I went through. I went through, honestly, 3 massive injuries back to back to back that kind of set me weeks and months back into recovery that I had to work from. But man, did those days feel long? But then look at that, and it's already
Yeah.
November of 24. So it moves quick. But
No,
we really, the power of the single good habit escapes people for sure.
yeah, no, I agree 100%. I'll give you an example of one of my failures. I remember we used to sit around all the time and say, okay, we're doctors. Maybe we should go get a law degree. Oh, man, that's going to take 3 years.
Yeah,
3 years goes by, right?
yeah,
I'm not saying that's the right thing to do, but if you really put your mind to it, it is. It's a very short thing. It's not a death sentence, right? And you're not going to get there unless you start. And I
that's
think
right.
that's the catch, right? So anything is attainable, or at least moving you in the right direction. And that's the whole catch. You were talking about a single habit. No such thing as good or bad habits, only habits that are either moving you towards your goal or away from your goal.
Oh,
So
I
just
love
figure
that.
out what you want to do,
Oh, I
So,
really like that. I love that.
So
Man.
that's good. So how are you acclimating now? So you're still obviously in gymnastics, and you have a lot more things to go for. What's the next big goal? You don't have to shy. I know you were shy about sharing
No,
goals, so I don't
no.
want you to share goals. But
No,
what's
no,
the next big thing?
yeah, yeah. It doesn't take a genius to look at my resume and see that I've got all the accolades you would ever want on the personal journey. I've got the Team USA accomplishments as well, but I still even value those as mostly individual accomplishments. They took a team, and I say this a lot. They took a team, but I find that all too often the way that men's gymnastics in the USA functions is that it is by definition a team, but I would like to characterize it as a group of high achieving people that accomplish something. Team kind of bleeds more into brotherhood and friends that you know you're going to have for a very long time, that you endure very difficult things with together, and you struggle and succeed together. So the one thing that kind of I lack selfishly of my of all the accomplishments is an NCAA team title with at Michigan. I always like to tout my girlfriend. She Reina Gugino. She got an NCAA team title her freshman year, the first of program history, and she'll never brag about it ever. But I always am pretty jealous because I don't know what that feels like. So if there's anything far and beyond that's in my head for the most important thing of 2025, it's that. Everything else will figure itself out. But yeah,
Right.
that's number one for me.
Well, that's good. That's good. And gymnastics obviously will be part of your life forever, but is it something that you're going to incorporate into your future career, or is it just an added piece to?
Yeah, yeah, I'm kind of figuring that out myself. I find that I really want to give back to the gymnastics community, and I remember my coach when I was in high school. I remember saying like maybe I'll become a coach one day or something, and my coach at the time had said, "I'll kill you if you become a coach. I'm not going to let you become a coach. That's not why I'm here." And so I even think back to also my parents and people that have sacrificed greatly for me to accomplish what I have so far, to kind of reach farther than that, to reach more of the, nobody in my family has ever been an entrepreneur. So to kind of reach that route and go the more more of that American dream kind of way, and then give back in grandiose fashion later on. So hopefully, men's gymnastics continues to grow with the influx of popularity after the Olympics. And then later on, I'll be able to be part of the catalytic movement that helped it get into that. Hey, we are a real sport. Young men want to join this sport from a young age and not just look at the basketball, baseball, and football and whatnot.
No, that's fantastic. You mentioned your parents, and I know one thing when we first met, we just started talking a few weeks ago. But actually, you're from the Chicagoland area, as am
That's
I,
right.
and I'm much older, even though I tease that I'm not. But I'm first generation, and my parents came from Ukraine, and you're first generation. Your parents came from Poland. So there tends to be. This isn't a superiority comment, so I don't want anybody to think, oh, because you got. But there's that cultural aspect. I think that kind of probably gave you that drive. And you
Yeah.
mentioned the word sacrifice, right?
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people, and it doesn't have to be people that came from another country, so I don't want anybody to think that. But it is important because as you stood on that podium, I remember seeing your parents and how happy they were. It really is. It's a team effort, right? It's not a one-time thing where it's just you that's doing it. There was a team behind you, and usually people that accomplish a lot of things, there's a team behind you, whether it's your parents, your girlfriend, etc. Right?
100%. I'll break that down into two pieces. First, I want to talk about that team effort. When I think about what I've learned in my time here at Michigan, and really what I've just learned in general as I've grown up, building and becoming successful and building something that is successful, quote unquote, from the average person's viewpoint, is all about creating a group of people that are willing to work harder for each other than they are for themselves, because they know that what they can accomplish together will be greater than the sum of what they would have accomplished if they all worked individually. And that's how these massive accomplishments are able to happen. I think about, I think business is just in my mind because that's the graduate degree I'm pursuing in accounting. But I think of these massive conglomerates of hugely successful companies of tens of thousands of employees that all are buying into the mission of, hey, I want to be a part of a group that accomplishes great things. And it all comes down to buy-in and support and cohesion of just, I'm going to sacrifice a little bit of my happiness for the betterment of the whole, because I know that that's going to lead to greater outcomes. So that's the first half. And there's this quick little quote that says, if you want to go fast, go alone, but if you want to go far, go together. And I remember reading that and thinking, I think there's something to that. And then on the immigrant parent status, man, I agree with you that it does not have to at all come from immigrants or anybody that comes into this country to start a new life. But I would be remiss to say that if there isn't an image inside of your head that's burned into eternity that motivates you, that's the only thing that we're looking for. I have this image. My father was a union electrician. He speaks English, but Polish is definitely his forte. And he would come all the way from either Indiana or Chicago, deep in the city, to work on these projects. And he would come home completely drenched in sweat. He had suspenders on. The hard hat is jiggling in the old beat up Buick, 02, 04 car, and it's 2015 and whatnot. And I would be looking at him knowing that he's giving everything that he can to support us. And so that's the image, that when you're sitting and you're sore from your workout in a heated gym or in a sauna, and you're going, yeah, life's not too bad. I'm tired from working hard. Oh no, I never heard my dad say I'm tired. So those are the images that I think that always are very common among various people. They have something that they saw that was a true sacrifice that motivates them. On those worst days when they don't want to do anything, they go, you know what? Life's not too bad. I'm chasing my dream. I can go today too.
Yeah, no, it fits into the why, right? I mean, it's part of the why you accomplished it. To whether it's to make them proud, whether it's that you understood their journey and how much effort they put into it. It's extremely important, and it's funny because my dad has passed, but my son, who's close to your age, he's actually 28, is in medical school, and he is second generation now. But we were lucky enough in the fact that my parents actually lived with us in our home, so they had their own separate area. So my son was actually brought up by my grandparents as well as me and my wife. So it's built into him as well. And again, doesn't have to be immigrant. It's just that family connection, right? Doesn't matter how many years have passed or how many generations, but if you have a strong support system, I think that helps immensely,
Oh
and
man, I can't think about I can't help but think about this perfect moment to encapsulate that. I'm standing on the precipice of the last 3 routines of the Olympic team final. It's pommel horse. It's equivalent to the women's balance beam, the most nerve-wracking event. One small little error and you're off. And the medal is within grabs. We're having a phenomenal competition. I know it. We know it. The crowd knows it. TV knows it. America knows it. And I'm one of the last chosen 3 to go up on this event. And my heart's racing. It's pounding. And I'm really feeling the weight of the world on my shoulders. My teammate comes up to me. He's from Stanford. And he looks me dead in the eyes and says, "We trust you. You're here for this moment. We got your back. You're the man for the job." Wow, do I just feel completely supported. That was kind of the last little piece I needed right there.
Right.
And as I go up to the podium, I remember verbally saying to myself, Paul, you're going to be a successful guy. these next 90 seconds, yeah, sure, they're important, but man, they don't define you. You're going to have an illustrious career outside of gymnastics. You're going to have fun. It's going to be good. You could fall a million times, whatever. But they are pretty important, aren't they? So I remember just thinking, though, having the support of my family, I can visually see them sitting in the crowd and knowing they do love me. That no matter what, even if I do fall on my face right now in front of this massive TV audience, I'll be able to swing freely, knowing that I don't have to hold anything back because I'm loved no matter what. So 100%, I want to quadruple, triple, quintuple down on the support system.
No, and that's funny. That brings something to mind. We always, I think this was Epictetus that said this, is that we suffer more in our mind than in reality. And if what you did is, as you got to that horse, you realized that, hey, I'm not going to freak myself out. It's not the end of the world, right? Nothing is over until they bang that last nail in the coffin, right? So people are going to fail. People are going to make mistakes. They're going to do all kinds of things. You have to be able to know yourself that, hey, I'm going to get through this, and it's going to be better, right? And
100%.
And that's good. The other thing that caught my interest is I always talk about this with physicians and then with athletes, right? So with physicians, they tend to be perfectionists, but it's very hard for them to take advice from anyone else. Because as we go through training, one of the things they teach us is to always be right? I mean, it's like that perfectionistic attitude because of what's at stake, right, from the patient's perspective. But I've noticed even when I was working in the healthcare environment, if you give somebody feedback that are professionals, they get very defensive. Whereas in the sports world, people will pay top coaches to give them that feedback because they understand that the only way that you're going to get better is through analyzing the feedback and making a change. Yet in certain professions, that doesn't equate for some reason. So I always found that interesting.
Yeah. You're speaking a ton about the ego. Such a powerful tool if used correctly. And we preach on our team because you're always going to have teammates who are better than you and not as good as you. And that's the reality of life. I mean, we've got a gymnast on our team named Fred Richard who is beyond I like to call him the most talented athlete I've ever met in my entire life. He was on the Olympic team with us. He's a phenomenal athlete, and he's willing and able to hear people out. It could be the 24th ranked gymnast on our team, and he'll listen to them out. And I think that goes to show that you will never stop learning. And again, you never know what one person might say. We always say in gymnastics that the way to coach a skill, there's 1,000 million ways that you can coach any skill in the entire book. You could say toes up for a tap. You could say pull with your shoulders, pull with your elbows, pull with your wrist, head left and right. You could say anything. And you're just honestly searching for that one little, that clicked, that makes sense. And so I wonder too if how a lot of these professions that you had mentioned, they're usually pretty cut and dry in how they prepare you for the profession that kind of mold you into saying, there is only one way to solve this surgery, or there is only one way to treat this particular disease. And while that definitely may be the case, what I've learned in my accounting program is that although the tax code says exactly what to do and how to follow the rules, those that can be creative with the tax code are always the ones that will be called upon first to solve these massive problems, and that will end up being taken all the way to the top. So I wonder too if there's an element of the ego. I made it through this incredibly difficult education process. I'm now making a great amount of wealth for myself and my family. Who's to tell me how to become a better surgeon? I'm the best surgeon in the Midwest. Okay, well, open up your horizons a little bit, let down your ego, and realize, hey, you could become the best surgeon in the nation if you listen to this, and that. So, a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, no. There's a saying that, it's thinking. We're constantly telling ourselves something or asking ourselves questions, right? So as opposed to saying, I already know that, switch your thinking to what can I learn from that?
Right.
As opposed to saying, that can't help me, switch the way you look at it and say, how can that help me? It's just
Yeah.
little tricks that can kind of change. Now, the hard part is I say this and everybody says this, it's all of these concepts are so simple. They're just
Yeah, of
not
course.
easy. There's a difference between simple means that anybody can understand it. Ease the reason it's not easy is not everybody can execute it. We keep falling
Yeah.
back to our old habits, right? So
Yeah, yeah, and I think too it's important to give each other grace. I've been, oh man, I could count. It would take me years to count all my mistakes, right? Where I've crossed somebody, or I've said something I didn't mean, or I acted in a way that wasn't representative of who I want to be, and I've always had the pleasure of having so many people that don't hold me to that one moment. And I try and extend the same back to them and say, you are bigger than your worst moment. That isn't you. You are just a collection of who you're trying to become. And for me, I always say, when somebody maybe is executing a pretty big ego, I say, well, I hope they figure it out soon.
yeah.
Because we're all on this journey on this blue marble together. So yeah.
No, without a doubt, it's. So tell me what it was like to talk to the because now that I knew you were an accounting major, but I didn't know psych was your major in undergrad. So how did it go when you talked to the Michigan football team?
Man, that was just an awesome, awesome experience. I'll say this much too. I hold the Michigan football. And first of all, before I say any of that, what a great year to do it in, huh? They go
Yeah.
out and they win the national championship. I say that I gave them a little 1% effort. Yeah, I'll take a little bit of credit for that. They didn't ask if I wanted. They didn't ask me for my ring size, which is totally great. I get it. But kidding, of course. But man, I just had I felt super esteemed to be welcomed into that environment. And I remember I had a previous football alum that I am pretty close with tell me, don't forget, Paul, that what you do on the individual sports side is a completely different ball game than what they do. It's like the entire sport is quarterback in gymnastics. You are only judged on, Hail Mary throws that are
Right.
50-50 anyways. So don't forget, and he made it he kind of dumbed it down a little bit for me from someone that didn't understand the sports world in the saying that during a football game, the team that wins didn't have 100% perfect execution. There could have been slackers on the team. There could have been people that fell short of their goals and didn't try as hard as other people. But because of the team aspect, that was overshadowed and didn't affect the team as much. And that kind of gave me a really big, poof, kind of bird's eye view of being like, wow, okay, team sports are completely different than individual sports like ours. And so speaking to them though was really awesome. I tried to illustrate that, after winning the Heisman Award for men's gymnastics, I tried to illustrate I've never tried to be just the Heisman in one area. I wanted to be the Heisman in every single part of my life so that if anybody ever wanted to look under my sheets or open up my own books to my life, they would see success and excellence in so many different areas. Because I think that the best athletes, in my opinion, are the ones that are so multifaceted. They were a great athlete, they were a great person, they've got a great family, and they've got great endeavors outside of their sport too. So that was just one message that I tried to send to them.
No, and I think that's extremely important because I think a lot of people don't understand, like you said, great family, great ethics, whatever it may be. Because if you have stress at home, how could you perform on the gymnastic field, right? I mean, your mindset. I mean, you have to be crystal clear when you do anything and understand truly what your goal is. You said something when you were going to go on the pommel horse. You said that your heart was beating and you were obviously excited to be able to do that. And I think that's another difference that I pull from sports is that from sports and academics, I think it's two different things. And I see this because my son's in medical school and I talk to a lot of his friends. And for them, when they're going into the test, even though they prepared, right?
Yeah.
It's a dread. It's,
Yeah.
oh, I'm going to fail. I'm going to do this. Yet in the sporting world, right? It's, yeah, my heart's beating, but you use it as excitement. And I
Yeah.
think that's where the mindset comes in. And I think if you could teach everybody to be able to do that in anything that they do, right? I mean, there's the saying that on the other side of fear is where the glory lies, right? So
Yeah.
you have to go through that fear to be able to do it. So even though you've done it so many times, you still get nervous, right? I
Oh
mean,
my God. Oh my God, do I get nervous? I'm your most nervous Olympian there is. I promise you, I was. Oh my God, my girlfriend and her family are out perusing Paris. They're going to vineyards, touring the Eiffel Tower, sending me pictures, and I'm going, yeah. I'm so glad you're having fun on your vacation. This is super fun for me too. But I bring it always back to this one phone conversation I had before a meet. I called my brother, as I do. I usually call all of my family and try to ground myself before my competitions and just remind myself that big picture, just I like to bring it back to love and passion and family. And I remember telling my brother, hey, I'm pretty nervous for this competition. I'm very nervous, actually. And he said, that's fine. As a big brother does, he said, you're only nervous because you care. And that just shows that you care. And so I wonder if that can kind of be the mindset that people use in academics. Because listen, I'm not asking you to look at an academic test, especially in the medical world, and go in a genetics exam, let's say, or some viral disease exam, and say, man, I can't wait to prove to my teammates or my classmates and teacher how smart I am on this exam. But what I think you could shift it towards is, I might have some nerves going into this exam, but that's only because I care about the outcome of my studies. And that is a motivating kind of energy that you could bring to that. So, yeah, that's just something I'm trying to bounce back and forth, trying to find a parallel.
yeah, no, that's very good. Kelly McGonigal from Stanford, one of the PhDs in psych, she defines stress as when something you care about is at stake.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
exactly kind of the same paraphrase that's there. I read something, and I'm going to get this completely wrong, but they were talking about they were interviewing somebody, and he says, I get lightheaded, my vision narrows, my heart's beating out of my chest, I can't feel my arms, my legs are numb, I'm nauseous, and I know I'm going to give a good concert. I think it was Bruce Springsteen that said that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. And it's using that passion and that energy. I think if we can get to the point where we get that mindset to use the energy that we have, just like you said, we're nervous because we care, and it'll help us as opposed to hurt us. I think they've done studies where people that aren't nervous actually do worse, right? I mean, and there's
Sure.
that balance, right?
Yeah,
If
yeah,
you're so
and that-
nervous you throw up, you can't get on the pommel horse, right?
No,
But I
no,
mean,
you're
there's
right.
that balance that's there, you know?
That's actually it's called the Yerkes-Dotson method.
Right.
There's a curve that
Trust
says
curve, yeah.
that you just need to be, you have to care enough that you give your best effort. But you can't show up lazy and wake up an hour before the competition and think that you're going to be
Right.
great. And like you said, you can't throw up before you go up on the event, or else you're going to be a mess. So it is really finding that balance. And I think too, it's I think about why so many people too find themselves stuck in the athletic cycle. At least I've seen so many athletes in various sports stay into their sport well past their prime, and there's definitely an addiction to that feeling too. It's exciting to get that excited for something and nervous excited, and nothing quite makes your stomach turn like a performance or something that has a lot of high stakes on it. But what I would like to say to most people is that you can find that somewhere else. I think it's a limiting belief. As my executive coach, actually Sindra Kampoff, she says, she always pushes me when I say something. She goes, is that true, or is that a limiting belief that you have on that? And I would say, she's going to love that I'm using this, is that when somebody says, oh, I'll never find something just like sports, I would say, well, is that a limiting belief? Is that you imposing that truth on reality rather than going out and searching. I'll tell you what, I play golf in my free time recreationally. I'm not great. I'm about a 20-25 handicapper. I'm finding my way. I'll get better soon. But man, if I'm playing against one of my teammates and we've got $1 on the hole or something like that, man, do I want to make that putt? Does that putt that's 2 feet suddenly feel like 2.5 or 3? You know what I'm saying? So there are those moments, and I push people to try and find those things because that makes life worth living. Those excitements, when you feel your heartbeat, man, does it feel great to be a human. Just a complete tangent, sorry, but
No,
I
go right ahead.
remember I was swimming with my dad at a local fitness club once, and I held my head underwater, and I just held my breath for a really long time, and I got up, and I felt my heart rate just explode out of my chest, and it had obviously came after a week of relaxation, just eating a lot of food and being super lazy, and I'm thinking, man, that's what it feels like to be alive. And it's nice to find those things, whatever they may be. For everybody, different strokes for different folks. So
It's interesting. You said something about golf. You said, I'm going to get better. And that prime example of what we talk about, which is growth mindset, right?
That's right.
You don't have that limiting belief of where, hey, this is my only skill. I'm not going to get any better. And that makes a huge difference. And there are a lot of people that end up having that fixed mindset where they say, hey, I'm not going to do it, or they have a perfectionistic attitude, and it doesn't allow them to get better. But I think a lot of the successful athletes have that ability to say, hey, listen, I may not be good today, but I know I'm going to get better. And I'll never be perfect, but I'll keep moving in that direction. So I think that's an important takeaway.
It makes it. I didn't even recognize that about myself, which I'm going to go to bed happy tonight thinking about that I've got something going on that gymnastics taught me. But that perfectionism, we like to say on our national team, I'll remember this ever since I was about 10 or 11 years old. We would have this explanation of perfection in gymnastics is like, great gymnastics is like a red Ferrari. And you never want to touch, or a blue and yellow one, but you never want to mess with the Ferrari. You want to keep it clean. You want to always protect it and always just any blemish, you cover it up. And that's your gymnastics. And I think I always equated it to that, like, you're never going to have a perfect performance or a perfect skill or anything, but the pursuit of perfection. And of course my next person or the next thing that somebody will say to me back is going, great is the biggest enemy of perfect, and so perfect is the enemy of really good. I think that's it. Yeah.
Good is the enemy of great.
Oh, good is the enemy of great. That's right.
Good is the enemy of great, which is part of the reason, which is now we're going deeper into tangents when we talk about inspiration and desperation, right? You'll hear somebody say, could you believe it? This guy is very successful. He used to live in an alley and have to fight for food with rats. I believe it, because the guy that's sitting in a middle-class home doesn't have that desperation.
Yeah.
Right? So either it's an inspiration or a desperation that drives us. And if you're able to, I do a lot of work with emotional intelligence and stuff, to be able to decide what's actually driving you is extremely important. So good is the enemy of great.
I saw this fantastic point about catalysts and things being, I want to say it was, I think it was Chris Williamson, I think. He had made this point that he said, so many people have things that are not too bad in their life going on, that aren't too bad to deal with. He gave the example of mold in a house. And he said, just a little bit of mold on the ceilings, on the walls or whatnot. That's not too bad. It might affect you a little bit, but it's not enough to get you to move. But if you had a whole wall fall down because of black mold, you're out of the house tomorrow. So sometimes it's also, it's a balance, right? You can't take the little bit of mold to be the number one issue of your life that day, but it can be in the back of your mind, and to just not forget about these things. These goals, like I wrote about 2024. I can't. They were time bound. I couldn't go to the Olympic trials when I was ready. They had a date, and I had to go there on that date. And maybe the date's coming in 3 months. Maybe it's coming in 9. Maybe it's in 5 years. If at least it's in your peripheral vision, if it's constantly being reminded and talked about, whether it's with the person that's supporting you or just to yourself or reminding yourself, journaling and whatnot, as long as it's being thought about, you're moving towards it, I would say.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. Well, Paul, it was fantastic talking to you. You're an incredible, not only an incredible athlete, but it's extremely understandable as to how you got your success. It really is, you have tremendous gifts physically, but I think it's all in between your ears that actually drove you to where you where you ended up. So it's been an absolute pleasure, and I hope to continue to talk to you in the future.
Thank you so much, Dr. K. Can't wait to see the maize and blue Ferrari, as I'd say, in person. So thank you so much for having me on, and hope I was able to share just a little bit.
No, it was absolutely fantastic. So thanks.